there's a new guy in town. His name is TJ. He seems like a really nice guy.
Hey, there's a new guy in town.
Yeah.
Like who says that? Hey, there's a new, like how big's your town? Is it like 12 people in a Western town?
4,000 people, man. Jay, start the timer. Welcome to the Location Indie Podcast, behind the scenes, unfiltered, no holds barred look at the realities of the location independent lifestyle from two guys who are living that lifestyle. I'm Trav. I'm trying to drink 24 ounces of water every day before I eat any type of food, and it makes me have to pee.
Right on. I'm Jason. I like my podcasts unfiltered, like this one. I like my beer unfiltered as well, Trav. I like my water filtered. Oh,
yeah, that's true. Unfiltered water would be nasty. Nasty, especially if you're getting it from the Schuylkill River. There's a little Philly joke for you. What's up, guys? Welcome. Today we're talking about relationships. If we had a way to cue the music, we do all this like lovey-dovey stuff.
Well, maybe Chris can throw something in there.
Chris throwing some lovey-dovey music.
Or something.
Jay said that he wanted to put in a song every single Location Indie podcast. So we're going to have to see what comes up with that today. There's going to be a lot of options, man, with talking about relationships. But today we're not talking about specifically romantic relationships, but we're talking about relationships and being intentional with relationships, which can be an interesting thing to think about because for a lot of our life, especially when we're younger, relationships just happen, right? Like you go to a certain school and so you're with those type of people. And, you know, I know for me, when I was in high school, I certainly wasn't intentional about anything. It was just like, well, these are the people in my class. These are people in my homeroom. These are people,
of course.
I play sports with.
I think it's the rare person that's paying attention like that at that age.
Definitely. I mean, I certainly wasn't. But I think, Jay, as I've gotten older, I think, honestly, when I started becoming more intentional was when I became driven to do something. So for me, that switch flipped when I stopped being a high school teacher and I started trying to become an entrepreneur. And I realized that just by bumping around in the world, bumping into people, making these awesome connections with people, that I had never bumped into anyone who was being an entrepreneur, especially not anyone who was like an online entrepreneur. I you know, like my dad ran his own company, but it was like a construction company. So, you know, a lot different than what I was trying to do. And that's when I started to realize, oh, if I want to do something and I don't know, I haven't by happenstance run into anyone who's doing it who can help me, I need to start seeking out people who can help me do that because it's not just going to happen by accident.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the classic examples is somebody looking for a mentor, right? It's like, I need a mentor. That would be a real intentional relationship, right? I need to find a mentor. I need somebody to mentor me. But how do you find a mentor? Can you just go ask people to mentor you? How do you get around those people? Like, these are all the questions that kind of pop up when you say, okay, well, I want to be intentional about my relationships, but how do I actually do it? And that's one of the things I want to talk about today. And I also want to talk about, I think, what the underlying principle is for being intentional with your relationships. And essentially, to me, it boils down to protecting your time, right? It goes back to the time freedom element. We talk about the triangle of freedom, time, location, and financial freedom. The time freedom, I would say, is more related to the financial freedom aspect than it is to the location freedom aspect, right? Simply because it's about being efficient and using your time wisely. And part of your time, a huge part of your time in life, is spent with people. And it's about like not only just the relationships and the time spent with those people, but there's managing the relationships in between. And like, that might sound like more like corporate speak. I don't mean like texting your friend is managing the relationship, but the more people you have in your life, the more communications there are, the more plans you have to either say no or yes to. And there are all these different things, right? But you get to the point, like you're saying, where you have certain goals. And if what you see in your life is that, hey, I don't know anybody else that's doing this type of thing. So like my high school friends aren't going to be able to give me advice on this. And, what do I do? Like you need to kind of be intentional, get around those people. Like for me living in Norway, one of the big intentions I had, this was about, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago now. I was like, I want to find somebody to jam with and I want to make some original music with somebody. So just having that intention made me be more intentional with the relationships I was trying to build, because when I'd get into interactions with people, not that I would just discount people that didn't play music, but I talked to my neighbor and it's like, oh, whatever. Like, do you play guitar? No, whatever. It's like, okay. And then I met my next door neighbor in the building next door who played guitar. I was like, oh, do you want to jam sometime? And it's like, okay. I'm like, oh, this guy's an incredible guitarist. Then I met some guy at the playground and he played bass. And then I was like, we should all jam together. And then blah, blah, blah. One thing leads to another. We do an open jam. Then we get this like professional singer coming in. And now we have this band called Laundry House. Check us out on Spotify, Laundry House. And so like all of that happened because I was being intentional with the fact that I wanted to make original music. Okay, well, I need to get around other people who are passionate about music and ideally who are more talented than me. That totally worked. That's not that hard to do, first of all, to be more talented than me in music, because it's a very easy thing to do. But these guys are incredible. So for some reason, they're still letting me tag along, which is nice. But I think that's a good example of sort of one path, as is my story and my path that I took to being more intentional around some specific thing that I wanted to do and then building relationships around that. So it became a reality. Now we've professionally recorded an EP. It's coming out. Like we have a single that's going to be on the radio on 2 different stations tomorrow and the next day here in Norway. It's like, holy crap, this is awesome. Like this is happening. And it started with just being intentional about these relationships, finding other people that vibed with creating music and things like that. So
yeah, one of the guys, we're down here in North Carolina and we're renovating a cottage or a collection of 4 different cottages, right? And I had used a contractor down here before, Jay, and but then my buddy, who when I moved down to North Carolina last year, being intentional, he was in real estate. My realtor was like, you should meet Clint. He's great. He's in real estate. Cool. I want to get more into real estate. We've become really good friends down here. He sent me a message saying, hey, there's a new guy in town. His name is TJ. He seems like a really nice guy.
Hey, there's a new guy in town.
Yeah.
Like who says that? Hey, there's a new, like how big's your town? Is it like 12 people in a Western town?
4,000 people, man. There's a new guy in town. His name's TJ. He reached out. Clint, this is Clint saying this to me. He reached out to me on this real estate forum called Bigger Pockets. It's this huge real estate forum, probably the biggest real estate website, forum in the world. And he had just moved to our area and he saw that I was active there. So he reached out to me and said, hey, I'm moving to the area. Would you like to meet up? That was TJ being super intentional with Clint, like sending a cold message and saying, hey, I'm moving to this area. Clint then referred TJ to me. And TJ was like, yeah, I do construction and I want to get into this. And how do you do something like that when you're new in a town or new in an area? You have to start seeking out people who might need your work, right? And so I had him come over and give a quote for doing this. But it was all because he was being intentional, right? He wasn't sitting like on his front porch being like, I hope someone drives by and shouts out the window saying, I need work done, right? He was being intentional. And so I think, as you mentioned, Jay, there's kind of, I see 2 big ways of being intentional. One is like on the one-on-one level, which is what you did with trying to find people who would jam with you, right? Like one person at the playground, one next door neighbor, then that led to another person, right? And it kind of goes from there. Same with TJ, reached out to Clint, who then reached out to me, and it kind of spurs on. And if you're saying, okay, that's one way to do it, but how can I do it, or maybe fast track it, or how can I do it, in a different way and maybe cast a wider net? And that's by, where do the people who you want to be around live? Like, and by that I mean like live on the internet, or what events do they go to?
Where do they hang out?
Where do they hang out? And when I wanted to be an entrepreneur and had no idea how to be an entrepreneur, an online entrepreneur, I went to the World Domination Summit. As you guys have probably heard, that's where Jay and I met, but it was a collection of I think that first year that I went was 1,000 people. I think, Jay, the first year that you went, year number one, was 500, right? And it was all people, and their tagline was leading an unconventional life in a conventional world. And so I knew if I went to this event that I was going to run into people, I didn't know who they were, that were going to help me fulfill that desire to be an entrepreneur and to build my own thing and to build lifestyle freedom. And, you know, you and I ran into each other. I ran into a good person who's a really good friend who's coming to Camp Indy, who's leading our breath work, Jacob Sokol. He's still a good friend, right? So like probably 90% of my entrepreneur circle now, Jay, came from that event. I ran into people, kept these relationships. They've blossomed over the years. And now I have a very wide net of people living this lifestyle that all came from one singular event. So you can do it like one-on-one, or you can say, hey, I'm going to take this approach and just start hanging out where these people are hanging out. And if you can do it in person, even better, because that obviously forms bonds quicker.
We happen to be hosting an event called Camp Indy at a summer camp, September 17th through the 19th, where you can get around other location-independent entrepreneurs, people living an unconventional lifestyle, van life, people living in RVs, people that travel full-time, all kinds of interesting folks. And the idea is to bring everybody together to help each other learn, grow, and do some awesome summer camp activities. You've heard us talk about it before. These are your peeps. If you're listening to this podcast, these are definitely your peeps. You go to campindy.com. You should join us. It's INDIE, by the way. Trav, I think like going to an event like Camp Indy, or you mentioned WDS, those are great ways to be intentional, knowing you're going to be stepping into with the right kind of event. Like for our event in Camp Indy, we're fostering community. That's what it's about. You know, some events, I mean, all events are different, right? I think ours is unique. WDS is unique. Some of these events that are really intentional around the community aspect and getting people connected, rather than just, you know, getting paying customers to come to an event. You know, I'm thinking like, I'm not going to call anybody out, but I'm thinking like, you know, some conference on advertising or something with a bunch of corporate sponsors. They're probably not as concerned with the community aspect. They're just like, hey, let's you know, make this event profitable, bring some people together. We got corporate sponsors, whatever. It's not really the same.
It's information based versus, you know, relationship based. And you know, to be fully transparent with everyone, running and having your own event, probably more time than we've ever spent on anything else in our life when it comes to a business. The least financially lucrative, and probably the hardest to actually figure out from a mental perspective, because there's so many moving parts. So if you're like sitting there thinking, like, yeah, like, you know, I should just run an event, like, just know that it's very, very difficult, but we feel so strongly about events and about if you're someone out there who says, I just want to change my lifestyle. I want to have the lifestyle freedom that I've heard Jay and Trav talk about on hundreds of different podcast episodes, but I just don't know how I'm going to get there. I don't know other people who are doing it. I don't know how to surround myself with people who are doing it, both who have done it and who are on the path to doing it. You know, that's why we're holding an event, despite it being a lot of work, very difficult, because we know the power that it holds, because it had that effect for you and I, Jay. It radically changed the direction of our life. And so even though it's a lot of work, even though it's not financially lucrative, even though with COVID, we've been put through the ringer for years now trying to get this off the ground, it, for us, or at least for me, I'll speak for it, it's about doing something bigger than ourselves and building a legacy and being able to spread the ripple so that when people come to an event, they look back on it in a year, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, and say, that was a seminal moment in my life that changed my life for me. Just like you and I look back at the World Domination Summit and say that about Chris Guillebeau and the team that put together that event. And we can't thank them enough because it changed our lives.
Yeah. Well, I think the whole point is we're trying to create a space where those intentional relationships can be built. That's what Camp Indie essentially is. And, just again, some general advice going back to the idea of intentional relationships and the time freedom element. Travis and I both have 2 kids each. And anybody that has kids listening probably knows it. If you didn't think you had time before, you definitely don't have much free time when those kids come along. And even then, whether you have kids or not, life is busy, right? There's a lot going on. There's only so much you can do. And I think one other thing I wanted to point out is kind of related to this, where, there's this, I could call it like the Google myth or something, whether it's information or, the internet myth, whatever you want to call it. Like, you can connect with people online, right? You can certainly find a lot of information and learn a lot, but sometimes it's better when you're just talking to people and getting information and trading information the good old fashioned way. And I don't say that as like some crotchety old Gen Xers like, I wish in my day we used to just trade information person to person. That's how it is. But when it comes to building relationships, being intentional with relationships in person, I mean, nothing beats in person, right? Or, and I do think if you want to protect your time and you're starting to look at the time freedom aspect, and when we talk about the triangle of freedom, time, location, financial freedom, as it relates to like your lifestyle business or whatever, there are things you can be doing even without a business to start gaining these freedoms, of course, right? You talk about financial freedom. You could start reading books on personal finance, maybe opening like stock in, we're not a financial podcast, but there's a lot of different stuff around that. There are some things you can do to get time freedom as well and build that into your lifestyle right away. And I think one of those things that can be huge is building more intentional relationships. And again, it's not me saying, oh, okay, you should just drop like certain friends because they're not serving your goals or whatever. It's not like that. But in some ways, to be honest, it kind of is.
Some people
right?
some people might have to do that.
Yeah, if I have like some drinking buddies and I'm going out drinking every Wednesday or something, and now I want to start a business and I'm trying to get serious about saving money, well, okay, if I don't go out drinking on Wednesdays, maybe I replace that with like an entrepreneurial meetup, and I'm also saving money on booze, and that might mean you lose that friendship, but is that friendship serving your goals anymore? You just have to be real. There's only so much time. There's only so many people you can be connected with. And I think what it comes down to is just, that's what I at least mean when I'm saying intentional relationships, is spend your relationship time wisely.
Yeah. I remember when I was younger, I used to watch football, NFL, all Sunday. Like, when you talked about having kids, that was the one thing I was like, I don't do, but all Sunday. I mean,
it was great.
From 1:00 game all the way through to the 4:30, then watch the Sunday night game. And it would just be a day devoted to football. And I live with 2 of my best friends, and we would just watch and sometimes other friends would come over and we watch every Sunday, and that was fine. Right. And I still have those friends. Like, I haven't cut off those relationships, but we don't do that anymore. Right. Like, they have other goals. I have other goals. All of us realize that we just can't sit there and watch football all Sunday, every Sunday, if we want to move forward in different parts of our life, right? With family, with business, whatever. And so, do I still see them? Yeah. But are the activities that we do different? Yeah. Right. And it's not like, oh, I'm leaving you or you're leaving me. It's like we all have things that we want to move towards. And I think
it can happen naturally. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing I want people to do with their relationships is, I want you to be intentional about setting intentional relationships. I want you to think and say, what do I want to achieve on a macro and micro life scale? And say, who are the people who are doing it and how do I get around them? Some of it might be, Jay's example is perfect. He wanted to start playing music. He was living in Norway. He didn't know anyone who played music in Norway. So he started on a little micro scale of like, I'm just going to start asking people, right? He could have started
It started with the actual intention to play music and to make original music, which got me making original music and finishing songs, actually. And then that expanded into being intentional with the relationships as well.
Yeah. And so that's what it really comes down to.
Laundry House. Check them out. Spotify.
Laundry House. Check them out. Laundry House. I'm actually recording. This is funny, Jay. I'm recording in what you would call a laundry house right now. Right to my right is a washer and dryer, and it's like a garage shed that people come and do laundry in. So am I creating original content in a laundry house right now? Yes,
man. Awesome.
But yeah, being intentional with those relationships, and again, putting yourself in positions to run into those people, whether that be Chris is buzzing us out, whether that be on a big scale and saying, I'm just going to go where these people hang out. And as Jay mentioned, there's nothing that beats in person. I could look at the past 250, 300 podcast guests I've had over the years. And if I wrote a list of the 20 that I have the best relationship with, I would guess that 19 of them I've met in person. There's one, Francis Tapon. Haven't met you in person. I know you're probably listening to this. Haven't met him in person yet, but we've talked so much that it's like, that's the one person, but everyone else we've met in person. So nothing beats that. So yeah, put yourself in those positions to meet those people or reach out to them directly and start setting that intention. If you do want to create a lifestyle that gives you the freedom, a freedom lifestyle, time, location.
Freedom, I won't let you down. Freedom. You can tell I'm not the singer of the band Laundry House.
But you got
freedom. I was getting to the end. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have a song in here.
You just got
Shout out to George Michael.
Financial, time, and location freedom. If that's what you're striving for and you want to put yourself around people who have done it and who are actively working towards it, check out Camp Indie, INDIE.com. It's going off September 17th through the 19th. And our whole goal with camp, well, A, is to eat a lot of s'mores, but B, is to create an environment where you can create relationships that catapult you into the next phase of your life. And that's exactly what happened to us when we went to World Domination Summit. And to this day, every time we see Chris or anyone who helped put that conference on, we thank them profusely because it changed the direction of our life. And our goal is to help do that for you through our event at Camp Indie.
Shout out to our camp director, Vanessa, who actually worked on that event for many years. So she's bringing a lot to the table, and we're thrilled to have her and all the other speakers. It's going to be awesome. So come join us. Do not miss this opportunity to build some intentional relationships. And thanks for your time. We'll see you at Camp Indie on the big water slide, ropes course. At the 80s, 90s dance party.
80s, campfire, 80s dance party, sumo suits.
We'll be there.
There's archery. There. I believe there's archery.
Oh, archery. I'm dying to do. Oh, man. I love archery. I haven't done that since summer camp.
To be fair, it might not be real arrows because it might be. I don't know.
Come watch me shoot an apple off Travis's head.
Well, it's also all you can eat and all you can drink. So real arrows, I don't know. It might get a little dicey. Come join us, guys. CampIndie.com. We'll be making
slings and arrows of outrageous fortune.
In-person relationships there, and we'd love for you to join us. Chat soon, everyone.
Peace.
Where did that last one come from? What is that from?
Shakespeare.
Oh, nice.